As my friend Olivia Pope would say, there's always another option. And for the GOP, there is another option to get out of this government shutdown mess. I'm going to lay it out for us. Next on Get Right with Lenny McAllister, starting right
now. Get Right with Lenny McAllister.
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion. So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
You cannot find physical sanity here in the land of Lincoln, from Carbondale to Elgin, if we collectively continue to tolerate the insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East St. Louis, Illinois.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics. It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizens. I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
I feel like a black republic. Money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got love for them. Can't clean my act.
Just as much as I love you all being here for the October 4th edition of Get Right with Lenny McAllister, the podcast that you find on my website, www.lennymcallister.com, I also love Scandal. ABC, you rock the house every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And why I love Scandal, because it's this real funny amalgamation of life imitates art that imitates life, where it's just believable enough, but you know it's still fiction. And it gave me the perfect lead-in to today's show with this quote: "There's always another option. There's always another option. I always have another option." I think it's the appropriate quote for the GOP with this government shutdown, and I'll get into that. Scandal, thank you. Now, I had a chance to watch Scandal last night, and those of you that don't watch Scandal, you need to. ABC, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday nights, place to be, especially if you love politics with this kind of real, kind of not surrealism that's even going on in the real Washington, D.C. right now. By the way, if you are like me, and sometimes you can't get to the television right at 10 o'clock and you're watching it on DVR, do not follow Roland Martin's tweets. And I had to do that last night. I had an interview with Al Jazeera America. Did not get home in time to see the very top of the show. Now, Roland, big Twitter following, and tweets these shows, particularly Scandal. And if you don't want to deal with a 60-minute spoiler alert as you're watching the show 10 minutes behind like I was yesterday, you just got to put your smartphone down. You can't be on your laptop. You cannot be on Twitter. So I had to make it a point to ignore Roland last night. Love him as a child of God, good guy. We disagree on some policy issues, agree on some policy issues, but I know he's focused on trying to do the right thing, and he's also focused on making sure you get what you need to get when it comes to Twitter, particularly when it comes to shows such as Scandal on Twitter and live tweeting. So I had to just leave him alone last night. Great show. I enjoyed the show, and I'm not going to sit here and highlight 60 minutes of that show because it's all about the one quote for me. And it goes back to what I was saying last night on Al Jazeera America. It goes back to what I'll be talking about today on Sun News Network up in Canada. And it goes back to what I want to talk to you all about today. There's always another option. Now, Olivia Pope, the main character of the show, said that to her dad last night because of the pickle that she was in. But it applies so very well to the GOP because the questions I keep getting basically center around how did the GOP get out of this and not lose seats in 2014? How did they get out of this and not basically damage their brand name to a point where they are just incapable of being anything more than a regional party? And people say that this is the coup de grace, this is the death knell, this is the fatal blow to the GOP. And I have to bring people back to this. Number one, people were saying similar things, not anywhere near as drastic, but they were saying similar things when the government shut down in the mid-90s under Newt Gingrich and President Bill Clinton. And what ended up happening? The Republicans won the presidency in 2000. They ended up controlling Congress for much of that following decade, or at least the majority of it through the 2006 midterms. And the Republicans were kind of okay. People definitely said this in 2008. They said that the Republicans were going to go the way of the Whigs. They're going to go away. They'll be gone by 2012 because the Democrats are going to push them off the political map. And literally 2 years later, the Republicans stormed back, took over the House of Representatives, scared this president, this very popular, history-making president, into giving the Republicans their Bush-era tax breaks right after the 2010 elections and before they even took office. People forget that. You know, President Obama gave up on those Bush tax cuts that he campaigned against and then signed into law and then campaigned against again. He signed them into law before all of those Tea Party congressmen, all of those Tea Party senators, even though there weren't that many Tea Party senators, but before all of them could get into office in January 2011. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, and again, you can agree or disagree on Facebook or Twitter. I appreciate those that are listening to me and listening to this podcast today. And have been following us for the last week, and been following us on WVON and following me in television media and online, places such as Global Grind, where I have my latest article as of Wednesday afternoon. There's always another option. So there are three things that the Republican Party can do to turn this around and look good by 2014, particularly November 2014, and be ready for the 2016 presidential election. Three things, because there are always other options. So everybody's saying, okay, you shut down the government over Obamacare. That's not going to work. They already launched a website, and you're not going to be able to stop it. Well, there are three things that you got to do if you're a Republican. Number one, and I'm saying this to my party. I'm saying this as a former congressional candidate. I'm saying this as a political pundit. I'm saying this as a fellow American. And I'm saying this as somebody that wants to see America succeed, and I would like to see the Republican Party succeed, to be quite honest with you. So these are things I think that need to be done. Again, if you're a Democrat, if you think this makes sense, tell me. If you think this is crazy talk, tell me. I don't care. I love the debate. I love hearing from you. Number one, when you're dealing with Obamacare, you're not going to be able to stop the launch, obviously, because it's already launched. It's already October 4th. It launched October 1st. You're not going to be able to stop that, but you do know, you absolutely know that this thing isn't rolling out very well. None of it has rolled out very well. As I said on Al Jazeera America last night, you got to make the monster, this Frankenstein-esque type of thing with Obamacare, you got to make the monster an efficient machine. And the Democrats had a chance to put that all into place when they had the House of Representatives, when they had the Senate, when they had the White House, which means they're controlling much of the bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. And how has it turned out? Has not turned out very well. So there are opportunities there to look at the gaps, do a gap analysis, see what's going to be broken 6 months from now, 1 year from now, and start building your message towards that as a Republican Party, as Republican legislators, particularly as Republican candidates trying to win swing districts or trying to take a Senate seat. That's what you got to do with Obamacare. You're not going to be able to stop the launch, but you can be in position to fix it. You can be in position to shrink it. You can be in position to make it make more sense now that it is the law. Because the goal at this point in time has to be having the Senate, the House of Representatives in 2014 through 2016, and then taking back the White House. That has to be the goal. Then from there, you can make Obamacare truly affordable health care reform. Because right now we're seeing this hodgepodge where the employers don't want it, and some premiums are going through the roof. Some premiums, I should say, are going through the roof. And in other instances, people are just not pleased because the availability they were promised isn't there. That's what you got to go after. If you're trying to defund it all, if you're trying to delay it all at this point of time, it's too late. Now, you could have made this argument in 2011. You could have kind of sort of made this argument in 2012, but although people that are running for office don't want to do this in an even numbered year, and I get that. But 2011 was the time to do this. You had the moral high ground from a political standpoint, if there is such thing as morality in politics. You had it there, but not now. Not after 2012, not after losing seats, not after the Tea Party's lost momentum, and not after the Tea Party brand has not only lost some strength from a momentum standpoint, but also lost the, people were either for or against the Tea Party in the first place, but now most people just don't want to deal with it anymore. Even people that were very fervent about the Tea Party are backing away from the Tea Party. Even the Republican Party that was trying to embrace the Tea Party in 2010 is now looking at them as if they're the crazy uncle in the basement. So rather than trying to defund or repeal, you got to look at how to modify. How do you prune this? How do you fix? How do you mend what's broken? Because we know things are broken in this law. That's the first thing. Again, agree, disagree, find me on Facebook, find me on Twitter. Twitter's LennyMcAllister. You know my website, LennyMcAllister.com. You can find me on Facebook as well. Issue number 2, because there are always options. There's always another option. So this is how the Republican Party gets out of this. Now, again, Democrats, don't tune out just because I'm not talking to the Democrats. People keep asking me, Republicans, how do you fix this? I'm telling you how the Republicans can fix this. So tell me if I'm right or wrong. Number 2, when you deal with the debt ceiling, and maybe number 2 and number 3 are the same. When you deal with the debt ceiling, you have to make sure, A, that you get some of your arms around the spending. And the truth of the matter is, in 2012, at the end, going into 2013, in 2011, you have seen Democrats deal with Republicans. And I said this yesterday on the show. I've said this throughout the last couple of years. Republicans have to learn to recognize what a legislative win looks like. You have to understand that you got to piece these wins together. For example, those celebrating Bucktober. The Cardinals beat the Pirates 9-1 yesterday. That's one win. Significant win, and it was a blowout. They need 3 wins to win the series. You have to approach politics the same exact way. You have to piece wins together. One win does you no good. In order to win the political war, you have to piece wins together. So, when it comes to the debt ceiling, unlike 2011, unlike the end of 2012, you got to take the wins that the Democrats are offering you. If they're going to prune spending, take it and build upon it from there. And then as you're doing that, that leads into issue number 3. I told you there were 3 things. First thing is be in position to be Dr. Obamacare, if you will. Dr. Obamacare, because the Frankenstein monster of Obamacare is not working. If it were working, there would not have been a self-repeal going on by this administration. If it were working, there would not be computer glitches. If it were working, there would not be all of the inconsistency around this law, and everybody from the unions to people that are constituents of Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid would not have been asking for exceptions. So you know it's broken. Go fix it. Dr. Obamacare is probably the role that the Republicans need to be when it deals with the Obamacare phenomenon, the Obamacare rollout, the Obamacare shutdown, if you will. It's number 1. Number 2, debt ceiling. Take what the Democrats are giving you. Understand where the line is and don't cross it. We crossed it at the end of 2012 and lost some concessions. We crossed it in 2011, lost concessions, lost a credit rating, and lost momentum going into 2012. Don't repeat in 2013 what we did in 2011 and 2012. That's number 2. Number 3, do not come out of these negotiations. Do not come out of these negotiations with just another continuing resolution. That would be a problem. Don't do that. You must come out of these negotiations with an annual budget. You will subsequently, if you do that, you will subsequently be able to spin the argument and say, it took us shutting down the government for us to make some sense with the debt ceiling and finally get an annual budget, because the Harry Reid Senate had not given us something that was actually passed in the law for quite some time. That has to be the argument you make with this. If you can bring a budget out of this and not just a CR, you now can at least start walking back to the political high ground. You're not going to be there, Republicans. I don't think that we as a party get there based on doing that one thing or all three of these things. But the question that is continually asked, and I'm going to put it out there as solutions. Let me know if I'm right or wrong on Facebook or Twitter. The question that's continually asked is, how do Republicans walk this back? How do they get wins out of this? How do they make sense out of this? How do they not completely just blow up their chances with middle America, with purple states, with purple districts? How do they not blow themselves up at the state level? How do they not win key Senate races and key congressional races? How do they get to a point in time where they're not just blowing it completely? This is how. These three things. Be Dr. Obamacare. Be ready to fix this. You know it's broken. Start coming out with solutions. Start doing very detailed analysis and say, okay, you wanted to put this together. This is how you have to patch it up. And then as you're patching up, you figure out from there, as you're patching up, how to transition this to a better system. Because if you're just trying to remove it and yank it away, people are not going to be happy about that. That's number one. Number two, debt ceiling. Recognize the wins. Recognize what the Democrats are going to give you. They gave us a lot. I think they would continue to give us a lot. I think one of the things that we still need to talk about is, what do our corporate tax rates still look like nowadays? How do we adjust those? How do we get more investment in urban environments to make sure that people that are chronically unemployed can at least have access to jobs? I know we do a very bad job as Republicans talking about poverty and basically blaming people for being poor when we know the economy's bad. Go get a job. And I know it's not just Republicans that say that. It's a little bit of everybody says that rudely. Go get a job. And then they'll turn around and say, there ain't no jobs. Well, I guess not. So what do we do as Republicans to facilitate those that need jobs, to get jobs? President Obama keeps talking about strengthening the middle class. That's great. The bottom line is, if you don't raise the floor in America, the middle class is still going to be sitting on the floor. That's not what you want. So Republicans, when it comes to the debt ceiling, how do you reduce spending and make sure that the spending is smart? Smart tax cuts, smart spending, smart pruning of the budget, which gets us to number three, which is make them come out of these negotiations with a budget deal in place, not a CR that just funds the government for 90 days, for 180 days. No. Something needs to be put in place that goes all the way through the rest of this fiscal year, all the way through to September 2014. Now, I know that some politicians, and I know I'm getting ready to wrap this up soon, I know that some politicians don't want a budget that they have to run on for re-election, or, depending on who they're trying to target in certain key areas, for election to take over a district in a swing state. However, I've said this on television, I've said this in print, I've said this on a campaign trail, and I'll say it again here. At some point in time, we need more people to start acting like leaders and not just like politicians. I genuinely believe that the Republican Party is actually in a position of opportunity. This is a chance for the Republican Party to show what they're made of. This is an opportunity for the Republican Party to show that even when they get themselves into these type of ditches, these type of deficits, these type of holes politically, if you will, just like we were in 2009, just like we were after 2008, we can find a 2010 from an election standpoint. We can actually do some things that make sense for more of America. I mean, heck, the economy of Wisconsin started turning around. We know about the job growth in Texas. There are other areas that have Republican leadership that's going pretty darn well at the state level. There are success stories, but you got to give yourself an opportunity to tell those success stories. And I genuinely believe, as we walk through this valley of the shadow of the government shutdown, day 4. The way to do that, threefold. Be Dr. Obamacare, because you know you got to fix it. You know you got to heal it. You know you got to mend it. You can't stop it, so you might as well, to quote ESPN, you might as well hope to contain it. Containing it's going to be bringing conservative solutions on something that has the propensity to be a hot mess. And right now you got the glitches, you got delays, you got this, you got that. You know it's probably going to be a circus for a second. So, if you come in and bring some sanity, that's a win for the Republicans. That could be a win in 2014 and 2016 if we start pivoting immediately. Number 2, debt ceiling. Recognize the wins. They're going to give concessions as far as spending. The Democrats have done this in 2010. They gave up the Bush-era tax cuts. 2011, they did that with the debt ceiling negotiations. 2012, they did that at the end of the year after the election, after Republicans lost more districts than they thought they would and lost the presidential election. They still were willing to give concessions on the tax rates going up, where at one point in time it was over anybody making $1 million a year, and then it somehow slid down all over again. Recognize a win, put it into place, cement it, and then let that be the foundation for the next win moving forward. You got to stack wins together. The third thing for Republicans to do to back out of this, get a budget. Do not come out of this with another continuing resolution. Do not come out of this with something that's temporary. Show that when Democrats had control of everything, they couldn't pass a budget. Because we forced them to the table and we negotiated hard for the American people, and we're trying to bring back a sense of normalcy, and we're trying to make sure that we provide a platform for Americans when it comes to the economy and everything else, that we fought for them and we got you the budget you couldn't get under Harry Reid and President Obama and Nancy Pelosi. We got it for you. All of those, of course, are a big if. That's if the Republicans are going to turn this around and rebuild the brand. If Republicans are willing to just kind of take it on the chin and say, we lost the Obamacare battle, but we're going to win the political war. What do you think? You know where to find me on Facebook. You know where to find me on Twitter. In the meanwhile, I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. You have a wonderful weekend. Those of you up in Canada, catch me 11 a.m. Sun News Network. In the meanwhile, you know I love you. I will talk to you soon. You have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday. Thanks again for joining me here. TCNGB means take care and God bless. Peace.